Right.
This goes right into what I call bubble wrapping our diet. Because of all the processed foods and the stress that we're living that is so out of control compared to, say, think of a hunter-gatherer living with this natural cycles of nature, in the forest, kind of entrained to those silent rhythms of nature, like the birds and the whales and the deer and how they migrate and live such a simple, quiet life. Well, as a result of all that stress, it actually breaks our body down. When you put pesticides on foods and you eat those foods, the pesticides kill the bugs in your mouth that help you digest certain things like wheat and nuts and seeds and grains. And it actually dials down our digestive strength. When you eat a bunch of processed foods with seed oils that are highly processed, that basically make the food stay on the shelf almost forever with not ever going bad. Like you put oil in a loaf of bread and the bread never gets hard anymore. It can be months, years later, and the bread's still squishy. The bugs don't eat it. It never goes bad. When you eat that food, those oils that your microbes normally would eat, they don't want to eat that highly processed oil. They don't even know what it is. All that garbagey oil goes to your liver, creates bile sludge, and that completely dials down your digestive strength. So all of a sudden, you don't have the digestive strength to digest hard to digest proteins like wheat and dairy or nuts. And then you go off of them for a little while and you feel a little better. But then all of a sudden you can't eat the next grain, or you can't eat the beans or the lectins or the oxalates or the goitrogens or the nightshades. Next thing you know, you're bubble wrapping your diet. And that is a problem because studies show that when people, just take wheat, for example, when people eat wheat, compared to people who don't eat wheat, but they're not, celiac, they have 4 times less mercury in their blood than people who are gluten-free but don't have to be. They have significantly more good bugs, less bad bugs, and more killer T cells than people who don't eat wheat. They're gluten-free, but they don't have to be. So what happens is those harder to digest foods, the nightshades, the oxalates, not in massive quantities, they're seasonal. They come at different times of the year, but they create a little bit of irritation in your gut. It's a hormesis effect. That's what creates our gut immunity, which is 70% of our immune response. You take those foods away, you feel better. You bubble wrap your diet. It feels great. But then another problem comes. I can't eat this one and this one, this one. Next thing you know, I can't even eat rice and beans, which is what my patients can't eat anymore. And that's the staple for pretty much half the world is eating rice and beans. You take that out of the diet, half the world perishes. But we have here in the West, people can't even tolerate a simple meal like rice and beans. There's a really crazy study to kind of prove this that was amazing. It was with the Amish kids. And the Amish kids have the lowest rates of asthma on the planet. And their genetic cousins called the Hutterites also came to America and became dairy farmers, but they became sterile stainless steel farmers. And the Amish kids were running barefoot in the barns with cows as pets and breathing in all the barn dust. And they have the lowest rates of asthma, and the Hutterites had the highest rates of asthma. So like, what a perfect genetic testing pool, really, right? And they kind of went into the barns and they tested the dust in the barn that these kids were breathing in. And they found out that it was the dust that was creating a little bit of irritation in the respiratory tract to cause an immune response against them ever getting asthma. And to this day, they have the lowest rates of asthma. This is why we can't continue to bubble wrap our diet and just keep taking stuff out. Of course, you feel bad eating a food, don't eat it.
Right.
But then let's go back and fix the problem. That was the Ayurvedic kind of mindset. Hey, let's reboot your upper digestive strength. Let's troubleshoot where your digestive system is broken. Is it the intestinal lining? Is it the microbiome? Is it the lymph that lines your intestinal tract? Is it the liver, gallbladder, pancreas, duodenum? And then we have a questionnaire. We have a quiz called the Digestive Health Quiz that you can take and then ask you questions about every part of your digestion and gives you herbs and foods to fix those weak links. And that's what we're not doing. We're just saying, well, don't eat this and don't eat this. And the list, as you can see, right, has been getting longer and longer and longer and longer. Can't eat tomatoes anymore. Can't eat, zucchini. Just like, wait a minute. Let's stop doing that, because when you take those hard to digest foods away, you take the hormetic slight irritation that creates gut immunity, which is bidirectionally linked to respiratory immunity. And do you think that inability to digest a wide variety of foods had anything to do with our lousy response to COVID or lousy response to the vaccine, and that might be a whole different story. But the idea is that we have a compromised immune response because your immune system starts in your digestive system. And that's, I think, the piece of the puzzle that we're missing. We just say, take out this food, blame the food. And yes, there's glyphosate, but there's enzymes in your intestinal tract and in your gut and in your lymphatic system called DPP4 that will break down glyphosate and break down wheat for you. So in small amounts, we have the ability to get rid of heavy metals and these things. But if you obviously overwhelm it, clobber the intestinal tract with pesticides, which kills the microbes, of course, we're going to have trouble. But the body can heal if you do the right things and reboot it with whole foods and natural herbs to restore function.
Well, it's just like exercise. Exercise is a hormetic stressor. It, like little bursts of it is going to tear down your muscles, so then your muscles rebuild and become more resilient. So it's the same thing. But I feel like today our immune systems and our systems are so under attack that any little piece of glyphosate or wheat are just going to explode an autoimmune inflammatory response, and everyone backs off. What's interesting about what you said about asthma is I just read a study 2 days ago that 1 in 3 children have a chronic disease that is going to last a lifetime, that being asthma, ADHD, or insulin resistance, those 3 things. And you go to the doctor for your asthma and you get a medication that's going to actually cause leaky gut that's going to worsen your asthma. And so that's where your philosophy in Ayurvedic medicine is looking at the whole body as one and seeing what we can remove, what we can use to build and strengthen the constitution where there are weaknesses so that the body can heal itself. And I agree, I have a food list where, cut out the oxalates, cut out some of these other foods. But my goal is that you're able to heal and then reintroduce them. Because if nature has created these foods, there's a reason. But even within my space and our space where people are eating organic, they're eating fruits and vegetables and wild meats, they're not paying attention to the seasons. We're getting our foods from Mexico. We're getting foods from South America where, their seasons are different than ours. We're getting things from New Zealand and Australia. And so when you don't eat locally, then you're not necessarily eating the foods that are meant for your microbiome at that time of year. And you talked about seasons, but it just goes along with the local versus global food